on a Friday. Is this considered a news dump by the Carolina Hurricanes?
I mean, it's not 5 o'clock yet, so I guess no.
Don Waddell.
I mean, if it was the Panthers, it would be at 6:30 tonight.
Holiday weekend, Friday. The GM resigns on Friday. Don Waddell out as one of the decision makers for the Carolina Hurricanes. Just yesterday, we said on this show that change is scary for the Canes this offseason. It was my number one concern. My number one concern was change is scary. And then it didn't take 2 hours after I got home last night for the interwebs to start hinting that Don Waddell was interviewing somewhere else, and Don Waddell's contract was up, and he had been given the opportunity to go seek other opportunities. And then, of course, today the news breaks: Don Waddell moving on, resigning from his post with the Carolina Hurricanes. That shakes things up. And yes, change is scary. But let's first give credit where credit is due. 10 years ago and again 6 years ago, Don Waddell was the right guy for the Carolina Hurricanes. Right? And he's been working on the business side for a long time, and he took on additional responsibilities. That is a person who, if the Canes go on to do the things that we think they can do, right? If this core goes on to achieve big and lofty goals, you will not be able to tell the story of how they got there without bringing up Don Waddell and how he ran the program and decisions he made. Has he hit on every decision? No, right? I'm sure some of you are going, but he made the trade and Vincent Trocheck. Yes.
He made a ton of great moves.
Didn't hit on every decision, but it's a percentages game when you're running a front office. Can you be right significantly more often than you're wrong? Can you take the right chances? And he has done a really good job of playing those percentages. Why did this happen? Why is Don Waddell out? Because, a lot of the trust in the program over the last 6 years has been as people grew to trust Don Waddell. Sebastian Aho wasn't one of his selections as GM, but he's the guy that locked him up to a long-term deal, right? A lot of the draft picks he's been a part of. You look at the Seth Jarvis's, like there's a lot that he did that went very, very right for the Canes. So why couldn't this work? Well, there's two sides, actually three sides to every story, right? The cliche is there's three sides to every story. Your side, my side, and the truth. So if you were to go ask Don Waddell, why aren't you the GM of the Carolina Hurricanes? He'd have a story for you, I'm sure. If you were to go ask Tom Dundon, the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, why is Don Waddell no longer the GM of the Carolina Hurricanes? He'd have a story for you as well. The truth, probably somewhere between those two. Is there a number that Don Waddell would have stuck around for? I'm sure there is. Some would say everybody has a number. Is there a situation, a power, some kind of relocation of powers, meaning taking some things off his plate or even adding more responsibility in certain ways? Maybe. But if I'm Tom Dundon, right, I'm putting myself in the owner's chair here. I think there's some writing on the wall that says it's time for a new voice. Right? You just locked up Rod Brind'amour to a 5-year extension, so you know that's stable. You know there's at least one through line from the build up to this point, right? From the doldrums that you were in to the build, maybe not the penthouse, but on the way that you're in now. You have the through line into the future. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you're not pleased with no Stanley Cup Finals appearances, and you're saying, I use this all the time, but the Webster's Dictionary for insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Maybe you felt like running Don Waddell and Rod Brind'amour together for the next 5 years is like we just did 5 years with those guys. And as awesome as it was, as thankful as we are, I want better. I want more. I want to be a little greedy. There is, and I use this example also, and it's not exactly apples to apples because it's GM and coach, but it's just the perfect example. Mark Jackson was the coach of the Warriors that took them from kind of the scrap heap to, oh, look at this. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson might be the best shooting backcourt of all time. I'm old enough to remember when Mark Jackson said Steph Curry and Klay Thompson were the best shooting backcourt of all time, and he got laughed at. And then he was let go. They moved on from him, brought in Steve Kerr, and then 2 years later, everyone was like, oh, look at that. Mark Jackson was right. This is the best shooting backcourt of all time. They go on to win a bunch of championships. I don't think Steve Kerr wins all those championships without Mark Jackson. Is there a Steve Kerr GM equivalent out there for the Canes that can say, yeah, I won the championships, but Don Waddell put a lot of the pieces together. I did the finishing touches, right? The person that gets past the pickle jar. Yeah, but you loosened it. Like, is there somebody that can open the jar or ready for this? Open the cup. And then they look back and go, yeah, Don Waddell loosened it for me. That's what you're looking for. I think that's the goal of, and that's how you end up here.
Whomever takes over is in a pretty good spot. Let's be honest. The franchise, in terms of where the farm system was, the quality of players on the roster back in 2018, when Don took over, yep, far and away so much better now than what it was. Like, whomever's walking into this, whether it's a promotion with Eric Tulsky, who's the interim, or they bring in someone from the outside, is in a pretty damn good spot.
Don Waddell, and this might end up being his legacy with the Canes. He passes the elementary school test. You know what the elementary school test is?
What's that?
Anytime you go somewhere, you leave it better than you found it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Anytime you're there with a bunch of kids, all right, everybody clean up. If a piece of trash is that's not yours, pick it up anyway. Let's leave it cleaner than when we found it. Don Waddell showed up to the Carolina Hurricanes, right, 10 years ago, which 2014 was not the best time for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Not.
And he leaves now having 3 straight 50-win seasons, having a very well-respected coach locked up for 5 more years, Sebastian Aho on a long-term deal, some flexibility with good options on what you do moving forward, a strong farm system, minor league system, prospects across the world, not a purged draft capital, right? It's not like, we have a good team now, but the next 6 years we have no picks. It's not that. He is leaving the Canes in a much better place than he found the Canes. Do they think they can go somewhere else? Or does he think he can go somewhere else and have a different kind of success? Maybe. Do the Canes think they can get one more level of success with someone else? Maybe. But that doesn't take away anything that's been built. That doesn't take away any of the good decisions that led them here. Because, as much as I do kind of keep, I'm always an advocate, especially in athletics, for the goal keeps rising, right? You want to make the playoffs. Once you make the playoffs, you want to win a series. Once you win a series, you want to get back to the playoffs the next year. Then once you get back to the playoffs, you want to make it further. Once you're one of the best teams in the regular season, you want to win a cup, right? Like, there's always another level. When things come to an end, when relationships come to an end, when employments come to an end, when eras come to an end, you can look back and reminisce for a second, right? Free agency doesn't open up for a little bit. Draft's not for a little bit. If you want to take 20 minutes and go, you know what? We achieved some pretty cool things. Mm-hmm. That's fair, right? It doesn't have to be a angry or bitter divorce. It can be hey, we came a long way together, and maybe we both see opportunities in other places right now, but they'll never take away the accomplishments that we achieved.
You did a damn good job.
And then you look at Rod and say, good luck in every game except for the one I'm playing against you, because that's how competition works, and you move on. And the same thing, right? If he interviewed for the Columbus job. If he ends up there with the Blue Jackets, you look at him and say, darn near every game we're going to be pulling for you. There's one very specific opponent we will be hoping you lose every single game, and that's us. And you move on with a laugh and a see you later.